Obviously, our focus all turns to Clemson after a nice team win Saturday against Virginia Tech. Again, as I said Saturday, we probably talked enough about Virginia Tech already. I felt like that was like a marathon presser after that game. So we talked probably enough about that. But great team win by our guys again, and the resilience that our kids showed going through that week will only help us going into this second week. Going into Clemson, and you go in to face the number 4 team in the country in Clemson. They got weapons everywhere on offense and defense. They've got depth. They're long, they're fast, and obviously they're well coached. Dabo does a great job. Got a lot of respect for him and always have, and how he operates his business down there. And we're looking forward to a great week. So, questions?
Pat, you've been around college football a long time. How do Clemson and Notre Dame stack up among the best teams you've seen?
They're both really good, obviously. I'll let you know after the game, who's better. But it's hard to, you evaluate Notre Dame, on the field and what they do, and then you look at Clemson on videotape, and until we get to, we haven't faced them for 2 years since 18 down in the ACC championship game. So it'll be interesting. But we know, Trevor Lawrence and ETM on offense are explosive. Both offensively and defense for Clemson, they've got, a top 20 offense and a top 20 defense. Those are two really, really good ratings when you're both, you got, a lot of times you see a team that's got a top rated offense and maybe not as good a defense and vice versa, but they're good at everything they do. And we know talent-rich football team.
What can you point to since the Notre Dame game, since the bye week, why the offense has been performing better?
You really asked that question?
Sure.
Well, first of all, when you got Kenny Pickett back, that makes a big difference. When you got your starting quarterback, guys have a lot of confidence in him, and we got to be ready when you don't have him. But when you got a quarterback that's got as many reps, whether it's spring ball 2 years ago, because I really don't count spring ball this year, that makes all the difference in the world. That guy pulls the trigger. He can make plays with his feet. He's a leader. He leads our offense. And, again, that doesn't say Joey or Davis or whoever else is in there. It's just that's the case. And until you have an offseason to work those next guys up at the quarterback position, that's the number one key. And, you look at Trevor Lawrence is spectacular. They go a couple games without him, and maybe they're not as explosive. Maybe they beat Notre Dame with Trevor Lawrence in there. So who knows? I'd say that's the biggest difference that I see.
Pat, sort of, at the same time, how much of that is just the guys around Kenny progressing and getting better and getting more comfortable with what their roles are and what they're asked to do?
Yeah, I think that's important. But you look at the makeshift offense that we had Saturday. Does it really matter? I mean, we can be explosive either way, but I still believe Kenny's the guy that is running the show. And we got 3 linemen out. You have Jordan Addison, your leading receiver out. I don't know. If you ask me one question, I give you my answer. You guys can have all the answers you want. That's my opinion.
Pat, you mentioned Addison. Do you guys expect to have him this weekend in Clemson?
You hope you do. But there's, we'll see in time here. We'll see how this week goes with all those guys. I mean, with COVID protocols, with injuries and all that, you just don't know. And I'm not going to push guys out there before they're ready. That's not my job. My job is to coach the guys that are ready to go, and we'll continue to do that.
Do you have players that right now won't play, or is everybody still at least possible that if the testing continues to go well this week could suit up?
It's you never know. You never know because there's one thing going on a 10 or 14-day quarantine. It's another thing to how do those guys feel? And they got to come back. They got to do all their EKGs and heart scans and all the things they do. They got to go through conditioning, and then they got to feel good, and I think there's a difference between guys that are asymptomatic, and I think that's, maybe what the public doesn't realize. There's asymptomatic guys who usually come back and feel pretty good and can start up right away. And then there's guys, if they're symptomatic, if they have any symptoms at all, it takes them a little longer to get their breath. There's just things that linger, that, it lingers with people more than others. And that's what we don't know. I don't know how long things are going to linger. And that's, 14 days, 10 days, that's bad enough as it is. But then, guys don't necessarily feel great coming back.
Coach, what can you take away from what Boston College was able to do in that first half? Because they're really one of the few teams that have challenged Clemson at all. How were they successful in running up the score?
Yeah, obviously, they got a really good offensive line. I think, they got a deep passing game. They did a nice job running the ball and throwing it deep and making shots. And Phil's a good football player. And then defensively, they're really good. I mean, they're sound. They're gonna make you earn it, and I think that's kind of what you saw in that game.
Pat, the emotions were revved up for senior day on Saturday, but for these seniors especially, will the emotions be even more revved up? They get a chance to play a game on national TV against a really strong opponent that might even rev them up even more.
We'll find out when we get there. Sometimes they say, can you get jacked up 2 weeks in a row? That's the emotion and energy you talk about. You want it. Sometimes it's hard to replicate that. You hope so, but you see how the week goes, and you kind of see how you just don't know. I mean, you don't know how that goes, and you hope it's high every week. But we're talking about 18 and 22-year-olds.
Pat, kind of off of Jerry's question, what do you tell your team in preparation, being such a big underdog on the road? How do you tell them about how you overcome this obstacle?
You know what? It's really worry about what we do. Not worried about Clemson and who they are. It's about us executing. And I don't think we have to talk about I don't know what the underdog is. What are we, 40-point underdog? I don't know what we are. I don't look at all that stuff. But I'm really not going to focus on us being an underdog or, it's a 40-point spread, whatever it is. We're just going to focus on what we do and what we, how we execute.
What do you see from the young offensive lineman this past Saturday? And, how does that shake out this week if, everyone's healthy?
Well, they got a game under their belt, that's for sure. And really all three of those replacements, Matt Gonsalves did an outstanding job. So did Blake Zabovic, and Carson Van Lin played more snaps than he's ever played, maybe at offensive tackle all year. So he got his feet wet as well. So those three guys and Jimmy Morrissey and Bryce Hargrove, really just did an outstanding job of making those guys feel good. I think it started off slow, probably why you see 3 field goals early. And then our kids started to get confidence that, hey, I can do this. And our O-line got better as the game went on. They executed better. And then, he started turning, drives into touchdowns instead of field goals.
Pat, you guys saw Trevor Lawrence, was it 2 years ago in the ACC title game? How has he progressed as a quarterback from your standpoint, from your perspective so far?
Yeah, I don't know how you progress. He was pretty good in 16. He's really, really good. He's got a quick release, as I think I talked 2 years ago, and you watch it, it's like, he rifles the ball out there. He knows where to go with the ball. He's making quick decisions. They don't take many sacks, and they don't make bad decisions. And, he's really getting the ball to, ETM out of the backfield more than ever. So not only do you have to worry about, number 9 catching or running the ball, you got to worry about him catching it now. So, he loves to throw it to him. I think ETM is the number 2 receiver out there. Amari's number 2, the slot receiver number 3, who really lines up all over the place. But they're explosive in the passing game. They got weapons.
I mean, he's a guy who was he's like a consensus number 1 pick. I mean, NFL teams are tanking for him. I mean, is he that in your eyes? Is he kind of the best quarterback maybe you've seen at the college level? I mean, how does he stack up in that regard?
No question. I mean, I've seen a lot of great quarterbacks, through the years here, and he's up there with the top 3 or 4. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was pretty good when we faced him at Miami, Ohio back in 2002. I look at what he did that year that we played against him. He's like Ben. He's explosive. I don't know if any NFL teams are really tanking. I think it's hard to say, let's lose today, guys, so we can get him. But I don't know if I'd go that far. But there's a lot of great players out there. Trevor is certainly one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the country, if not the number 1 guy. I'd say he's number 1. I'd say he's your Heisman Trophy guy. went through COVID. All of a sudden, he slips in the. I don't understand how that works. We're in a pandemic, and he shouldn't lose any votes for Heisman because he didn't play in a couple games because of COVID. It wasn't like he, made a bad decision, got whacked in the backfield, and went down and threw a pick at the same time. His play on the field speaks for itself.
Pat, I know you didn't have a lot of guys that are difference makers now that played in that game down there in 2016, but are you able to replicate any of that travel stuff? Are you a superstitious guy? Do you try to say, well, we did this 4 years ago, and I'm just curious, do the COVID situation just make that out the window and just say, hey, we just got to do what we can?
I think every year is different. Every weekend is different. It's who's playing for you, number one. But, the big thing we got to do is worry about us. And, our kids will go down there with confidence. And, one way or another, that's my job. And then they got to go down and play with emotion because it's an emotional game. You better have enthusiasm, you better have energy. But, I really don't know if you can take much of what you did there. That's what we do every week. So what we did against Clemson, as far as, just getting them mentally and physically prepared, is the same thing we do every week, whether you're playing Notre Dame or you're playing Clemson or you're playing, Virginia Tech.
Pat, in 16, I think Deshaun Watson threw for almost 600 yards against you. Still win the game, but I think Wayne Gallman only had like 36 yards. And then in 18, ETN went off and had like 150. Right. And Lawrence didn't even need to throw. Is that step one to winning this kind of game, is you have to compete up front and not get run over in the trenches?
It always is. If you don't stop the run, I mean, you look at those deals, and, we had a chance to beat them down there with whatever they had rushing, 50 yards rushing that day. And then they had 300 yards rushing in the championship game. So that's certainly the deal. You got to make them one-dimensional. And really, they didn't throw it much in that ACC championship game, but it didn't really matter. They didn't have to. So, we got to stop the run. And ETM is the guy to start off with. And then, as soon as you get enough guys in the box, then they're going to throw fades. And he's, Trevor's really accurate. And you got to change up your coverages a lot or you're going to be in trouble.
Pat, I'm curious, with the schedule seems to change by the minute. And I know you anticipated, being light on your feet this year, but I mean, how do you sort of, you're preparing to play. I mean, Clemson was in Florida, was in Tallahassee, and the game didn't get played. I mean, just sort of where are you at in terms of, does nothing surprise you at this point in terms of how the schedule gets affected?
Yeah, nothing surprises me. We've been blessed to be able to play 9 so far. We've had one, trip up, I guess, if you want to call it. But the good thing is, we've got it rescheduled, and so we'll get our guaranteed 11 games in, hopefully. But nothing surprising me. Again, I think that was the first game was really, squashed on a Saturday morning, and we don't want that to happen. We don't want to travel down there and get squashed. We sure hope it gets to be played.
Pat, I assume you're feeling much better about your offensive line depth now, even if those guys, who didn't play Saturday can't play this Saturday. You got guys not just for these next 2 games, but for next year.
No doubt about it, Jerry. I mean, it's kind of a spring game, if you want to call it, Saturday. We got a chance to, see who the future is at some spots and know that, hey, they got a game on the belt. And they're going to feel much better, whether it's this weekend, if they get that opportunity again, or, next year. It just builds your depth for the future. And who might be there and who might be playing that spot. No doubt about it.
Is it just the position, or has it been something else when you haven't had Jordan Addison available that has led those 2 kind of big explosions from DJ Turner? And can you find a way to get those guys going at the same time when you do get Addison back?
No doubt about it. I mean, you only throw it to one guy, though, and we definitely got to find more ways to get DJ the game or get DJ the ball in the game if Jordan does come back. So, we just got to, if Kenny could throw like that, it'd be really good. But we got to get to the guy that gets open. And I think that's the major thing. It's not really throwing it to a guy. Sure, if there's some bubbles and stuff, you want to get guys the ball in space. But DJ's definitely a guy that, we got to find ways to give him the ball more.
Pat, you guys got hit with 2 of those celebration penalties on Saturday, one after Patrick's fumble recovery, one after DJ's touchdown. I'm curious, neither of them really seemed like much. I'm curious, what do you tell your guys, after they've made a big play, a massive play in the game, and they're obviously happy and excited about it. What do you tell them to kind of balance showing their excitement, but also maybe just trying not to get hit with a penalty like that?
I don't know. I mean, that's a great question that I need to get answered. I don't make those calls. Going into the season, I didn't know this was a big emphasis. Every year the referees will say, "Hey, this is an emphasis this year." A couple years ago, they didn't like, the knee show, and now you can have, now you can look like Juan Price and no one cares. But no one alerted me that you couldn't have fun playing the game of football anymore. Okay. There's nothing choreographed. It's called excitement. It's called energy. And I want our football team to have energy and play with excitement. Now, I don't want it to be excessive, but when it's on the sideline, you kind of go, what are we doing here? I mean, I don't get it. I'd like to know how many were called. Maybe some of you guys can do your homework. EJ can do your homework. How many were called in other games? I know they got a pick against us last week, and there was a lot of talk on our sideline because it was on our sideline and really almost taunting our sideline. But there's no flag there. So I don't know what to tell you. I wish I had answers. I'm going to try to get answers. We've had, 4 in the last 2 weeks. I mean, we got someone does this and gets a penalty. We got someone that does like this and gets a penalty. We have a receiver catches the touchdown pass, gets excited on the sideline. We go have our, our dunk fest on the other side. We don't get a penalty for that. Like, I don't understand. I guess we have to have a class, on how you can celebrate, the right way. But, I want our kids getting excited. This game of football is a fun game. You're supposed to have fun when you do it. We talk all the time about guys celebrating together, and it's discouraging when, these kids have been through a lot. I don't know if anybody appreciates how much effort these guys put into the game of football, playing it, practicing it every day, going through the COVID protocols that we have, and then you want to throw a flag for someone getting excited and try to squash the party. That's not what college football is all about. These are all amateurs that should be excited when they make a play. So it's probably a question for the ACC office, I guess.
Pat, the last time you guys traveled, you came back and you had a COVID situation. We don't know if that was specific to that or not, but have you made changes to the way that you guys are traveling or anything this time around?
Well, yeah, you don't know. I mean, that's the hard thing about this whole thing is you don't know if you got, I know we're not going to eat in a tent, we stayed at the Westin Hotel this past weekend. They did a great job. I mean, they had, if I'm serving food right here on this podium here, they had a glass wall to the ceiling. It just seems so safe. And I think kids feel comfortable when it's like that. And it wasn't like that down in Tallahassee. So, again, nothing against them down there. It's just what it is. And it's, what they had available. And there's, I guess maybe next time we got to go out to eat somewhere, where we feel better. But that just takes more time. And then you got to get there earlier and you got to have a bus trip to go to a restaurant. They can serve you the right way. But, I don't know. And you don't even know if it's that. I don't even know. So, we're pretty safe every week in the protocols that we use. Sometimes your hands are tied as a coach, and sometimes the meeting rooms are as big as this room I'm in right now. And sometimes you got to go out in a tent. We've been lucky in the city of Pittsburgh. We got, big time, 4 and 5 star hotels that we're able to stay in and stay safe. And we just got to hope we can, have that down in South Carolina.
What a final question? Anyone?
The basketball teams around the country have had generally some tough luck getting going here. As at Pitt, since there's been a lot of teams shut down and games canceled already. The season hasn't even started yet. Since you went first, have you been in contact with the other programs at Pitt to try to talk about some of the things that you guys did that have seemed to have worked?
Well, I haven't had time, but I know Chris Sala has, been in touch with, anybody that asks questions. I mean, I think we do things the right way. We got, the same doctors. Jennifer Brown does an outstanding job. She's kind of in charge of the whole athletic department. So she knows the protocols we're, doing down here. I'm sure she's doing it because she works with basketball every day. They're doing, we're all work together, I would say. But, I haven't had any contact with, anybody up there in the athletic department. We just don't have time. I mean, I'm lucky I talked to my wife. So she knows the protocols.